Hello and welcome to PTC'25 again in Honolulu. I'm now joined by Kristen Vosmaer, Managing Director for JLL. And Kristen, welcome to Honolulu. How many PTCs have you been to? What number is this?
Thank you for speaking with me. This is my third PTC, but it's really the first PTC that I've seen this much energy and excitement and participation. I think it's like 12 or 13,000 people are here, so it's
4,200, 4,300.
Okay, well, that's big.
Yeah, it's close to a 40% increase on last year.
Yeah, okay.
The official numbers are going to be announced a bit later, so it's grown a lot.
So 4,000 plus all the wives and children that also come along here.
In Hawaii, it's about 9,000, 10,000 people.
Yeah.
But register, it's 4,200, 4,300. So it's big. It's big. It's one of the biggest around.
It is. Yeah.
But look, one thing that's very big as well is the conversations we're having around power and the energy transition of the sector that consumes so much power, about 1%, which is going to grow up to 10% in the next few years. How can data centers move from traditional power sources into more efficient sources? What does the transition look like, the timeline, the considerations that need to happen from the infra layer to the capital layer? How does it work?
Well, I think it's important to remember that we're already embarking on that journey. So it's not just that we're starting now. Yeah. What I think magnifies the conversation is that AI workloads are now just really coming on top of the already explosive cloud computing. So you're seeing a lot of transition to technologies like bloom energy. You're seeing natural gas generation. On-prem natural gas, backup power natural gas, and I think that natural gas is really the conduit to transitioning to whatever the longer term stability is. Renewables play a big part of it, but as we know, renewables don't have a 7x24 shelf life. So concurrently, the industry is investing in battery technologies. They're looking at combining power solutions more and more. So maybe it's a on-site natural gas plant coupled with main grid power. And I think the industry will, while we don't talk as much about sustainability because of all the growth that's in front of us, I think naturally sustainability is underpinning all of that. So you'll see a lot of combined efforts and a lot of combined technology solutions getting us to that sustainability.
Even to raise capital, you can't do it without a sustainable
100%.
strategy. So it's almost as simple as that. You cannot get money without having a proper strategy, sustainability strategy in place.
No, and I think educating the capital stack is important in terms of they have goals as it relates to their ESG performance of their portfolio, but they also recognize that there could be risks. If you are a developer and all you're doing is betting on SMRs, well, there's a big journey to that, right? So, you're helping investors and large banks who are underwriting these deals understand how the technology is going to work, how reliable is it, how is it going to change the commercial agreements between a hyperscaler and a developer. That all comes into play.
Okay, and then, you mentioned hyperscalers. That was my next question, because hyperscalers have been at this whole thing of energy transition for a long time, and they've got a lot of money. They've got a lot of cash they can put towards this. That sometimes the operators on our side, they don't have the same resources. What role do hyperscalers play? What pressure do they put into the market to really turn green? What lessons can we learn from them? How does it all come together? Because a lot of people can't afford to build solar farms like they do.
Yeah.
So how does it all piece together between hyperscalers versus colocation?
Well, look, they're going to stay the dominant drivers of the space, and certainly then of any technologies that are in there. There are plenty of examples where they're willing to take risks to achieve their net zero targets with their own campuses. That's not something that they've been as willing to do with co-location providers, developers, as you mentioned. But I think that's starting to open up a bit, and I think we see it opening up in developers leasing space to the hyperscalers that have joined technologies, so where they do have natural gas on site and still willing to put the same kind of SLAs. Yeah. I think you're also seeing them provide an extra economic incentive, or at least a higher per lease rate, per kW lease rate, to get to a greener solution if they can. A lot of it too is when they're building in Ashburn, Virginia or Atlanta, they have a regulatory component to work their way through. So because they are building, they're still expanding in communities like DC or Atlanta, they have to partner with their developers who are gathering the permits, have to convince the local constituency that it's a good addition to the community. And so with that, they have to partner and come up with new creative solutions for not just energy. I mean, we're talking about water conservation, we're talking about noise abatement, we're talking about waste recycling, we're talking about job creation, tax base creation. And so, as the hyperscalers continue to rely on developers, they have to be good partners on creating the full value for these projects to move forward.
Okay. When you look at the technology innovation stack, what would you say are some of the most exciting options that we're going to have, or we're going to have in the next few years that we can opt for to really become green and maybe use less water as well? But from an energy perspective, I'll add that, for example, one thing we haven't really heard a lot about here is nuclear. It hasn't really come up that much at this year's conference, but just tell us what you see emerging as a potential answer to all this consumption.
Well, SMRs could certainly be the most exciting one, but we're not talking about it because it's still a few years out, right? Yeah. And I think you'll see us increasingly talk about it as we get confidence that the regulatory hurdles can be overcome, that the supply chain and the places can overcome. But if you talk about SMRs and coupling them with other renewable technologies, being able to create hydrogen, it certainly has the promise, but it's still in the future. I think the technologies that we're really excited about now is, as we go into this higher density liquid to rack, liquid to chip, we get to talk and work more on closed loop systems. So we're certainly reducing our water consumption, increasing the efficiency. We are talking about backup generation being driven by natural gas versus diesel. Some markets are more mature than others in terms of biofuels for that, but I think there's a lot of ground that's getting gained there. I think if there's other technologies that help us bridge to a sustainable, cleaner future, I look at solid state batteries as a potential for that. There's some manufacturing challenges and the economics are being worked out, but I've got a great deal of confidence that between that and sodium ion, we're going to have a much different battery landscape in the coming years that then help us bridge to that clean future.
Okay. Are you confident that we can, as an industry, and both energy industry and data center industry, can we reach the capacity that we need to support the demand that's coming at us?
I think we can. And if you look at it from a U.S. perspective, the grid is okay. We're expanding the grid. There is a lot more capacity coming online, but you also have a lot of projects out there, particularly in West Texas, that are tapping into directly power from oil. Is that going to be the green sustainable power? No. Does it bridge us to that? It does. And I think we're always going to be developing in advance of what the total need is going to be. And as we do that, in the interim, the sustainable technologies will come in and supplement and ultimately replace that. It's not a short-term fix, right? We're growing so exponentially that we have to look at this in a 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year kind of a life cycle.
Yeah. Okay. And then, Kristen, you've recently released a big report with big numbers as well. What comparisons can you make between the different markets? And we can stick to North America if you prefer to, but we can go broader than North America. But what comparisons can you make in terms of energy usage and how far can some of the locations go, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 versus some other parts of the country?
Well, I think certainly West Texas is getting the vast majority of attention. I still think around the Southeast, Atlanta is starting to show some resistance in terms of how much they're willing to spend. The Northern Virginia is as well, although you can still go south. I think other areas to really keep an eye out on are Nevada, Utah. There may still be some good room to grow there. But I also think you're going to see developments now with Elon Musk investing in the Southeast. I think Mississippi, Alabama. I think there's opportunities there as well to increase developments. Internationally, we still see markets such as Jakarta, Philippines expanding, Malaysia is still going to expand, and then I think where we'll really see AI take a foothold is in Japan. If I had to guess, there's still a lot of capacity there. They have a lot of nuclear power. They're expanding their availability zones across the country. So I think you'll see a lot of expansion there.
Japan keeps coming up. I mean, you're the fourth, fifth person today alone that has mentioned Japan in conversations like this. So it's a very hot market at the moment.
It is, and it's part of that is the energy, part of that is the overall infrastructure. We have to do with the fiber connectivity, subsea cables, things of that nature. But they have a lot of the hallmarks that you would want to see, and it's just a function of getting the projects to a point where we can also see that the human resources and some of the supply chain catches up to it too.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, in the US, we just had the announcements from the White House, the new White House.
There's two of them.
$500 billion.
Yeah.
Stargate's project. Stargate's? I think it's Stargate or Seagate. Stargate. $500 billion. So that's going to change the monopoly of the marketing in the US as well in the coming years.
I think it will. I think it'll help steer locations a little bit more purposefully. Certainly the parcels of land that the DOE has been kind of holding back for this. I think a lot of those are going to be good for development. I think it's a hyperscale to government contract type of mechanism, which is okay, but I think that's going to give developers some interim competition to start thinking through. But even if all of those campuses went straight to hyperscale, there's still aggregative growth that is going to need to happen. You're still talking about capacity in the major markets that over the course of the next 5-10 years, it needs refreshed, it needs released. Nobody's giving up that capacity to be close to the eyeballs. So there's still so many positive things for developers that it's an exciting time.
Yeah, cool. Last question. There's one more after that, but that's an easy one. Last question, because there's been some conversation here, especially on the central stage, that people don't know if the US is going to be as open with AI as it was with cloud. So cloud, the US was a major export of clouds to the world. We had Google, Microsoft, all those guys. The US, people are having conversations. Is it going to be more made in US for the US, with more protectionist and nationalist views on how AI could function? Hence this $500 billion, for example, from White House at this stage. What's your take on it? Is it too early to get a view? You think AI is just going to be more powerful and it's going to spread across the world? What's your take?
Yeah, I think it's too early to get certainly a conclusive view, even just getting to a bellwether. I mean, the things that I know we'll start seeing more is that that America First approach by the administration, the evaluation of what is going to be good, that will take more scrutiny. I think the current administration is already showing that they want to have a deeper relationship with Silicon Valley, with the hyperscalers. So I imagine that they're going to have a lot of those active conversations, whereas over the last few years, those conversations didn't really progress much, and it was met with a little bit of distrust on both sides. So I think, I don't know what it's going to look like. I do expect them to take an America First approach, but I also expect them to get through the conversation quickly. Be it the TikTok, saga that's on the docket right now, and then into regulating AI and what the proper structure is for that. I think they'll make fast work of that because they know that getting those questions solved to a base level will help unlock the full potential.
And regardless, it's all being built for those longer life cycles, like you were saying, 10, 15 years down the road. So it's not just the next 4 years. But and Kristen, so when we come back here next year for PTC'25, what's the one thing you think that by January next year the industry needs to have done to be in a better place?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer. You said it was going to be an easy one.
Yeah.
I think what they're going to have to continue to work on aligning the incentives from hyperscaler all the way down to the supply chain, and understanding that with the increased volume that's coming at the industry, it's not that something has to give, it's that something has to be reimagined. So for example, we're a large operator in this space. We run about 3-4 gigawatts in North America. with 2,500 people. If we double our business, can we do that with 5,000 people?
Yeah.
Probably not, because we're not going to find that talent. So we have to look at things differently from a systems level. We have to look at it differently from a partnership level, from an expectations level, and then contractually and risk and capital, all of that flows into there. So my hope for the industry is that we recognize the pressure that this kind of growth puts on all areas of the industry, and we start having open, collaborative discussions on how we all get there together, because if we do that, it's going to be a very successful time in our industry.
Which resonates a lot with the calls that have been made in the central stage at PTC'25 as well.
Well, that's good.
But Kristen Vosmaer, Managing Director for JLL, thanks so much for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
As for your home, thank you for watching, and do check our website and social media for the latest digital infrastructure news from across the globe. At the Tech Capital, you lead, we report. Bye for now.